called to order. Why don't we begin with public comments?
The seat's going.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, there's more than one? Sure. It's going to be more than one.
Good morning, Your Honors, Mr. Commissioner.
Good morning.
So, my name is Marvin Treaty. I'm a birthright citizen of the United States, a resident of Philadelphia for over 30 years, and I'm also a candidate for the office of City Commissioner. I mentioned my candidacy not as a plug, but out of frustration. Throughout the course of my campaign, there's one question I've been asked more than any other from every single demographic group you could think of. Why should I care about local elections? That's what they tell me. This is Philly. It's always the same and always will be. That cynicism is understandable between Seth Williams, Phila, Kathleen Kane, Phila, John Doherty, who's still out there maneuvering and pulling purse strings while under indictment, Bobby Deenan, who's under indictment and running unopposed, and Lisa Deeley, the chairwoman of the commission, who had her notary license revoked for life and who had been pleased not to do so by the state auditor general and city controller, voted for these voting machines. And I believe the vote was illegal because at the time she was both a board member and a candidate. Today, your honorable board, you have a chance to prove these voters wrong. You have a chance to tell them that in Philadelphia, the rule of law still matters, that when it matters most, the Board of Elections will do what's right. And that when their ability to vote is on the line, Philadelphia will choose integrity over political expediency. In 1903, long before most of us were born, Montgomery journalist Lincoln Steffens said, "All our municipal governments are more or less bad. Philadelphia is simply the most corrupt and the most contented." That was over 100 years ago, 150 years ago, yet here we are. Philadelphia can be better than this. You can be better than this. I urge you to vacate the decision of the current city commissioners and begin the selection process again in a way that is transparent, accountable, and that truly takes the needs of Philadelphia and all of its constituencies into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner and your honors. My name is Vicki Moore. We have spent the last 12 weeks explaining to you how the voting system procurement process was flawed and how the vote that was taken was actually illegal. It must be canceled and restarted. The process was faulty, for one, because the RFP itself was written to favor one company and one machine, the Express Vote XL. The State Auditor General said so, and the City Controller has agreed. The commissioners chose to use the best value procurement process and made it as secretive as possible. There was virtually no input from the public. There were no public shows demonstrating the systems under consideration. There were no independent experts consulted, and they speeded through the process and accelerated the process so they could run the public portion of their campaigns. The City Controller has asked repeatedly for you to not let this go forward. Second, the February 20th vote was illegally taken. City Commissioners Deeley and Schmidt were ineligible to be on the board at that time. Pennsylvania law is clear that a candidate running for office cannot sit on the Board of Elections. And the law is also clear that you are a candidate if you are accepting campaign contributions, or if you are spending money to run for office. And we know from the publicly disclosed financial disclosure forms submitted by Deeley and Schmidt that they were accepting campaign funds and they were spending campaign money before the February 20th vote. Therefore, this vote was illegally taken. They were not legally permitted to sit and take that vote. You are public officials in a position to vacate that vote. You are judges who swore an oath to uphold Pennsylvania law, and the violation of law here is as clear as day. We ask that you vacate that vote. We ask that you do your job.
Good morning, Commissioner and judges. My name is Kevin Scoblin from Citizens for Better Elections, a member of the Protect Our Vote Coalition. Today I want to talk about evidence. Evidence is the reason that the governor required all of the counties to upgrade their voting systems. Our current machines may count votes correctly, but we don't have evidence to prove it. We don't have the ability to recount the votes or to assure anyone that the vote totals are correct. That's why we need a paper trail that the governor has recommended. Elections are more trustworthy when we have durable evidence of voter intent that proves that the outcome is correct. And as judges, I'm sure you have lots of experience with evidence. And you know that all evidence is not of equal quality. DNA evidence is stronger than other forensic evidence. Video evidence is stronger than eyewitness evidence. Hand-marked paper ballots produce strong evidence. A voter marks their selections directly. The distance between the voter and the evidence is small, so it's an effective way to capture voter intent. All machine-marked ballots produce weak evidence. And the reason is simple. It puts a machine between the voter and the evidence. The machine can fail, it can malfunction, or it can be manipulated. A common complaint is touchscreen calibration issues, where a voter touches for one candidate and it flips the vote to a different candidate. In addition, the voter now must perform an extra step. They must carefully review their ballot to make sure that the machine did its job correctly. The voter must verify the quality of the evidence. But here's the thing, voters don't do it. In the 2018 study, they determined that 52% of voters even bother to look at their ballot. And those that look only look for a few seconds. In another study, they introduced intentional errors on the ballot, and voters didn't detect it. If the voter is not able to verify their ballot, if they're not vouching for that evidence, then it is weak evidence. Last week, Nick Custodio told the City Council that post-election audits will detect errors. But post-election audits detect tabulation errors. They depend on having high-quality evidence already stored in the ballot box. They can't detect errors that the voting machine made when marking the ballot. Once the voter casts it, it becomes gospel, even if there's flaws in it. In fact, the creator of risk-limiting audits wrote a paper with two other professors called Ballot Marking Devices Cannot Assure the Will of the Voters. And it explains that the evidence produced by machines is so weak that risk-limiting audits are meaningless. And they go on to talk about the Express Vote XL in particular, because it has barcodes that the voter can't verify. It has a ballot summary that the National Academies has said is virtually useless for verifying voter intent. And worst of all, after a voter casts a ballot, the XL sends the paper back through the printer before it's counted. It can change the evidence. It's like letting a defendant have access to crime scene evidence before it goes into the evidence locker. Even if no tampering occurs, we have good reason to doubt that evidence. Philadelphia will be paying $15 million more and getting terrible evidence in return. Evidence so weak that experts say it cannot assure the will of the voters. Evidence so weak that the entire country may doubt our election results. We've been coming to you for 12 weeks now, and it's hard to know from these couple of minutes of one-way conversation whether any of this is sinking in. But if you take nothing away from this, I hope that you will take this away, that it's about the evidence and the quality of the evidence. And in the coming weeks, I hope you'll reflect on the importance of having strong evidence, because you have a choice. You can still do your job and protect 1 million Philadelphia voters, or you can stand by and watch while the city spends $15 million extra dollars on a voting system that complies with the governor's directive, but produces weak evidence. Thank you.
Next speaker. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Meg. At last week's budget hearing, 11 weeks after the vote, the public finally learned the cost of the new voting machine. On February 20th, Commissioner Deeley told the Inquirer that the cost would be $20 to $27 million. That's a huge range. So, is the price $20 million? Not even close. It's going to be nearly $30 million for the voting machines and another $2.6 million for the poll votes. Nearly $32 million on upfront hardware costs alone. New York, Boston, Baltimore, and our own Montgomery County all vote using hand-marked paper ballots. scanned by an optical scanner. If Philly did the same thing, it would cost us $15 million less. Let those numbers sink in. Philadelphia will spend nearly $32 million. We could be spending $15 million less. That's $15 million that could be used to fund our schools, roads, city infrastructure, and services that citizens need. $15 million could do a lot of good to dozens of neighborhoods. Every week, you have the chance to avoid this faulty and improperly made decision. Every week you don't, you're actually throwing away $15 million. We can't lose sight of what's being lost here. We're giving up $15 million so we can put 32-inch touchscreens in front of voters twice a year. That's not the best practice. It's not in Philly's best interest. Step up. Overturn this bad decision. You're not judges now. You're public officials. Do your job.
Next speaker. Townsend, go ahead.
Good morning, Judge. My name is Lauren Townsend, and I'm here this morning to talk about your jobs, judges, as interim commissioners. We all know that city commissioners are responsible for administering voter registration and conducting elections for Philadelphia County. And this, of course, includes purchasing and maintaining our voting infrastructure, voting machines. I suspect that when you became judges, that the last thing you thought you'd be doing is sitting on this Board of Elections. But that's what happened. You're here. You're here because commissioners who are candidates must recuse themselves from election duties, which is precisely what happened. However, you should have been put here before Commissioners Deeley and Schmidt voted in favor of the expensive subpar machines when they were very much embroiled in their re-election campaign. So here we are. The candidate commissioners wrongly voted for these machines, and now you, as board members, can right that wrong. And you should. You may believe that your positions are interim and that all you need to do is keep seats warm and deal with and sign off on mundane issues like moving polling places, locations, but your job is more. This is a decision-making position, and the election code spells it out in section 302. You have the power and the duty to make sure that our elections are honestly, efficiently, and uniformly conducted. To do your personal best to make sure the voters of Philadelphia have the most reliable, accessible, and secure voting system possible, and that we don't pay more for anything less than that. Your job is to lead, to be proactive, and to right wrongs, like the illegal vote taken by people who were candidates. Who knew? Who knew that when a broad-based coalition and citizenry elected you, that you'd find yourself in a role that could have such an enormous and positive impact on our democracy on the cusp of the 2020 elections? Righting this wrong, nullifying this vote, and starting over, that's the right thing to do, and it's your legacy. Thank you.
All right, next speaker.
Okay, I have one question. I actually didn't know it was a public comment, so can I just talk kind of in general about elections, or does that have to be about Michigan?
Whatever comment you have.
Awesome, thank you very much. Hi, my name is Lawrence West. I'm currently the Minority Inspector of Elections in the 22nd Ward, 26th Division. I came out here today because I at least want to learn more about what was going on with the voting machines. I unfortunately haven't been kept abreast as much as I wish I was, and after what I've heard today, even though I know one of the commissioners personally, Al Schmidt, if he was elected and running for office while he did that vote, then yeah, that's a problem, and I would say that about anyone, no matter how much I like him. But the other reason I'm out here today is because the last year I've had this job as a minority inspector. My first time ever getting elected. It's pretty exciting, and the first one I did, I got assaulted in my polling place, and no one did anything. I sent a report to all 3 city commissioners, and all I heard was, we'll take it to the DA's office, and nothing ever happened. And then I had to work the general election. I was terrified. I'm like, okay, I don't know, that guy's going to come back. And it was a ward leader. Well, got a new ward leader. Person's very nice. I have nothing to to say really about them. But the problem is they're also running for re-election right now. And if they're running for re-election, they're a Democratic ward leader, well, I've got 2 open seats, although they're not formally resigned. And part of the problem I'm running into is a ward leader who's also running for city council is may very well try to appoint people during the primary where she thankfully doesn't have any opponents, but still it's a problem. And I've read another report saying this is a serious problem that we really need to look into. So when we're talking about these election machines, I would say it's never really about one particular issue, it's about everything that leads up to it. And I believe the current machines we have are good. I think they're secure. The new ones, I would like to learn a little bit more about, but based on what I've heard, I do have my own other issues with them based on the overall security about them. But security comes from the top down. It's not just the machines, it's about making sure that when we have these elections, they're run by people who are elected to these jobs, appointed appropriately by judges, and we don't have, well, I hate to say political cronyism, but that can be what it is. We can't have people who are running for office appointing people to work these boards. I've written my recommendations in the past about this, namely making sure that board leaders are informed about the law regarding elections and appointments, that you can't just appoint people, you have to nominate them for a curbside election, and hopefully something will happen to that board leader who assaulted me in the polling place a year ago. It would be nice. So I at least wanted to voice some of my concerns since I actually had a chance tonight for once, which is very nice. And hopefully, if you need a copy of that report, let me know. I can send it to you, and that's really all I have to say at the moment. Thank you very much.
Any other public comments?
Morning, Commissioners. Commissioner Roberts. My name is Rich Garella. Members of the public have brought up Lisa Deeley's surrender of her notary license already. And I want to illustrate what makes that so relevant here. The story is some friend of hers came in with a woman he said was his wife. This fake wife signed away the real wife's right to union benefits, and Deeley notarized it as a favor with no ID. She didn't put it in her notary ledger. That's another violation. She did this not once, but twice. You're judges, 2 of you. I think you can see what's going on. As we speak, Deeley has not turned in that ledger. So for almost a year, she's been violating her signed consent agreement with the Department of State. She's a county election official who's in open contempt of the State Department. This is a person who checks notarized petitions and certifies our elections, who is the face of the voting machine selection, who was put into office to get that one thing done. This is whose good faith you're relying on, a person who does favors for friends even if she has to break the rules. You've been appointed under PA Election Code 301C because Deeley and Al Schmidt are candidates now. But you're letting their deputies, their personal appointees, touch this election. They act on their boss's direct authority. Their paychecks are riding on the outcome of this election. They should be nowhere near this election, and I question that they are in this room right now at the Board of Elections on your side of the table. Now, there's no rule against you answering questions in here, no matter what you might say. In fact, the Sunshine Law guidelines recommend that you do. So my question to you is, what specifically are the roles of Nick Custodio and Seth Bluestein in this election while their bosses are recused?
Thank you for your comment.
I'm not done. What are they and what they aren't allowed to do, and who is, I will. And who is ensuring that?
Excuse me.
2 to 3 minutes is the recommended.
Excuse me.
I'm right here.
Right, hold on, come on, stop.
What are and what aren't they allowed to do, and who is ensuring that?
Excuse me. You're not supposed to stop it.
Can you guarantee that these personal appointees will no longer touch any aspect of the 2019 election in which their direct bosses are running and which their paychecks are riding on the outcome of. Can you guarantee that? The whole point of Election Code 301C is to ensure that our elections are honest beyond question.
All right.
There's no excuse for this. You're not here as judges in this room. You're public officials. Do your job.
Thank you. I'm going to make a general announcement about comments, which is well overdue at this point. We asked for 2 minutes on your comments, and we are very frequently, probably close to half the time, we're over that. It is not uncommon that they run 3.5 or 4 minutes. This one is 3.5. Now, this is done as a courtesy because I know you have a lot to say, and sometimes you have a hard time summarizing. It does not mean, nor does your passion justify, that you bully any part of this process. You're entitled to public comment, but you don't call the shots, whether we're acting here as commissioners and or judges. I want to make that understood, because while we welcome your public comments, we even encourage it, believe it or not. Okay? We're not going to let this devolve into something else. And the next time you wonder why there are no responses here, that's a good example. So
Oh, really?
Stop.
Wow.
That's what I mean.
No,
So,
you made him go over.
next comment, please.
I second the chairman's comments.
Thank you.
Ridiculous.
Commissioner, Your Honors, my name is Scott McCarthy. This process is mired in controversy for good reasons that have been explained here in ever-increasing detail while weeks and months have slipped away. The process is legally vulnerable for a whole set of reasons, including the improper use of the best value procedures and the improper vote by Commissioners Deeley and Schmidt. The City Controller says she won't release $1 for it unless her questions are answered, and the State Auditor General is backing her up. Meanwhile, city officials are scrounging into couch cushions for millions of dollars so they can pay for these extraordinarily expensive machines outside of normal procedures. $15 million extra dollars that could be spent on this city's pressing needs. It's time to stop this nonsense. Montgomery County, with over 800,000 people, replaced its voting system in 5 months. Their new voting system costs less than $6 million and is coming online for next week's primary. We can do the same in 5 months as well. The thing to do now is vacate the decision, start over, and do it right. You are the Board of Elections. Do your job.
Thank you. Right, any other public comments?
I have one.
Sure.
Others. My name is Jim Marsh with the Protect Our Vote Coalition, and I was not intending to speak today, but I can do it in the last.
Speak up, speak up, speak up.
I was not intending to speak today, but in view of the comments preceding the last, I feel necessary. Full disclosure, Judge Campbell and I happened to come up in the elevator together. We had a very nice, non-substantive conversation. And I think it's evident that everybody in this room is here in good faith. This is an extremely weighty public issue. It shouldn't be strictly limited to 2 minutes. This is a little bit of an extraordinary situation. I say, everyone here is here in good faith, Your Honor. And I don't think that restrictions that strict on the time of comment are really justified given the issues. So I just want to emphasize that. I endorse everything that's been said. This whole process for the selection of the machines has been flawed, and the result of a bad process is bad machines. So it's all one. And I endorse every other comment. You, the board, have the authority to make this right, and it is your legacy. So thank you very much, and please take us in good faith. That's why we're here.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. So long as it's delivered with the civility that you delivered, right? I mentioned the time limitations to help everyone understand that we're being accommodated. But my focus was on the behavior that goes along with the comments. In other words, if you're going to go over, you at least have to behave and not try to bully the process. You have to recognize that we're making public comment available to you guys. So I appreciate your comments, but I just wanted to be clear here that you've not all been limited to 2 minutes. We asked for 2 minutes, and we let people go over that, well over that, very, very frequently. And that's okay, all right? So long as we're working together to that end.
I understand, Your Honor. I say even the overage that we are given by you, it's still chase. You know, it's still chase.
I got it.
If we had 5 minutes, that would be even a limited amount of time for these kind of issues. So that's part of the source of this discomfort.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? All right, hearing no response, we'll give the supervisor's reports.
Morning, Your Honor. Good morning, Commissioner. As of today, the county board has received 2,200.
Yeah, my ID card is out, and the Palm Police phones are being packed and ready to ship on Thursday.
If there's no old business, or new business.
Do your job.
Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your jobs. 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 Do your jobs.